Can talk about the
All right.
a little bit what
It's
we're here
recording.
doing. And, all right.
Yeah, so I need to look at my notes that I had made because I'll have to
we'll
read
take a
them.
second.
Hey everyone, Retire on Dividends here,
Oh, sorry, Happy Campers here, Corey.
and we are lucky enough to interview the one and only
Jay.
Guys, thank you for being here. This is great. This is going to be a great event today. I'm so happy you guys could both join us. It's amazing.
So we're at the are we at the New York Stock Exchange? I guess. Okay, so we're at the New York Stock Exchange officially.
Yeah.
We were lucky enough to get invited. Thank you, Jay. Greatly appreciated. It's an honor. But we're actually interviewing here live in New York City. Not live, pre-recorded, but and no planned agenda, just an interview with two spreadsheet nerds talking about options and high yielders. So, Corey, you want to start off with one of your planned questions?
Yeah, so I'm just going to go down the list of some things that I had thought of or other people had asked. But does YieldMax ever plan to try to do it so you can have like 4-week month for every week to have distributions? Because right now, right, we have like the first of the month and then a week after that. But then like those last 2 weeks, most people don't have anything and most people are looking for stuff. So they're looking to roll those over into each. And I know somebody had heard them say, well, once they get past the second week, they can't roll it over to YieldMax because they want to do one that's going to pay out again. So they're now going to some of your competitors, you know, because they know they're going to pay.
In like the meantime, while they're waiting.
Yeah.
I don't remember who coined this phrase, but it's almost like these are I'll say the yield renters that kind of pop from fund to fund.
Yep.
So we've talked about this. You know, I think it would be, so here's the reason we haven't done it yet. First, it's actually more work and more expensive to do. Every one of those requires operational work, and that's fine. And we know some people do weeklies. But the other reason is the inconsistency in the yield, because, well, you guys track the trades, right? Some weeks we hit our bogey on income. Some weeks we don't. Some weeks we get exceptionally more, right? I like the more smoother, predictable income of like, seriously, like if you look at Tesla, for example, we've been between 45 and 55 for months now on the distribution rate. That would waver quite a bit. And so I think some folks might get disappointed, like, oh, this was only a 30% week annual. Like, I think it's actually better to take the month together. So that has been the reason why we haven't gone to the more weekly. Maybe in a new series of ETFs, when we launch a new series, we'll have, you know, the third week, right? Would be the third or third and a half week of the month, where then we schedule a new distribution. I think that's viable. We can choose when we want to create that schedule. So that's definitely, we can take that input.
And I think the third week would be great because that was the hardest one, right, to find, was trying to find something that paid the third week. Just, you know, listening to people in the Discord and the questions and the conversations.
Listen, if that matters, I think that's great input for us, right? So as we're launching new styles, because I think if you're, well, I'm trying to think what's been filed yet. I think you'll see some evolution of the style of YieldMax coming as well. So I don't see why we couldn't, you know, so like, okay, this new form, we go on the 21st to the 23rd, something like that. I think that's definitely doable. Sure.
Or we could tell them learn how to budget, right? That's the solution too.
Oh,
right?
It's easier said than done, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
All right. Speaking of all cycle payments, YieldMax obviously pays a different time than the other funds, which people love. But can we talk about, because this was recent, again, I know we talked about in our interview, how the declaration, well, how are we going to say this? All right. So the payments kind of decided, like the amount of money that they get.
Yeah, with the single stocks announce and distribute, we know what the dollars YieldMax is going to get. The dollars, the total dollars.
So I calculated what it was a little earlier. It was around 83 cents, right? And then say up until the actual declaration date, I think it came to like 73 cents. I forget the amount. So I guess if people are angry about that, what's your response? Okay,
there's two things that impact the distribution rate. The first is the price of the underlying, right? So YieldMax may move around a little bit and the rate may be what it's going to be. But the actual, I'm going to say cents per share, the 70 plus cents that goes out, that gets impacted by the ETF creation and redemption process, right? So shares go up, I still have the same fixed amount of dollars, so the dollars per share goes down. So that is, unfortunately, I mean, it's something we're aware of. There's not much we can really manage to that, right? So your best scenario, like if you're counting on that and you're watching the share count increase, you could do a little math to say like, all right, I know what they should get on this day. And you guys are tracking all this. So, you know, I don't have to tell you how to do that. You should be able to watch that share count each day. That's right on the site. And you should be able to have an idea like, hey, if there were no more creates, that's what we used to say, changing the share count, increasing the share count. If there's no more creates, then it should be 82 cents. But guys, the way this is going, there have been, 5 units, 10 units each week.
Yeah.
So we should expect a little more. Put yourself on a discount. I think, again, it's a budgeting question.
Yeah.
It's not like, but there's not a lot of discretion we have on that one. Whereas, as you know, in the other single stocks, we use some discretion on how much we're going to distribute, right? Whereas with YMAX and YMAG, it's pretty set. We know what those dollars are going to be, and we stick to that.
I have an answer to that too. Let me know if you agree with me. So my answer to that is, it's actually a good thing. If you owned YMAX early on through the process, right? They own all these underlyings. These underlyings are earning premium, building up. So YMAX essentially should go up. So as YMAX goes up, your cost basis is still down. So you're actually making some capital. So instead of the 83 cents coming off the top, you're just getting paid the 73 and you're keeping 10 cents in the capital per se, right? So that's kind of my statement to that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, overall net, I think I would say, so that's not wrong. What I would say is there is this feeling of I was diluted a little bit. And look, that's the amount that the fund earned, right? There just happened to be a few more shareholders at the end. But you're right. You got the appreciation from the underlying. You may notice, by the way, when our single stocks go ex-div and they drop by the amount, YMAX doesn't drop. Right? And so we're deliberate. We didn't want YMAX to drop, then get the distribution, then go up and then drop again after distribution, right? Because we thought that's like too wacky, right? So we estimate, and then actually that estimate holds the value of YMAX higher based on when that distribution gets defined. So in a way, you're absolutely right. Hey, the value stayed higher than it would have been if we actually lowered it by the distribution and then raised it back up. So look, this is kind of accounting. I know that's like your bad guys, right? But not everybody's. But I would say this is a dynamic of fund management. And by the way, the same will reverse the other way, right? Yeah. If there's ever a time where people are selling and there's redeems, distribution will go up. Yeah. Same thing. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So with all of that, you mentioned something that made me think about it, the intraday trades and stuff on the website. So it looks like those have changed. Remember the other day I emailed you, so there's no trades. And I downloaded all the files and there was nothing there. And then the next day I checked Snowy's link to see if it was working. And then I noticed it pulled all of them. So is that difference now going to be, it's always just going to have to be one file that pulls all of that data?
At this point, we're like we have all the funds and we have more coming, right? Yeah. We have whatever, 22, 23 single stocks. I think by the end of the year, that number could be over 30, right? So for ease and convenience, we're just putting all the trades, showing it by fund on every one of the pages. We thought that would be more convenient for everybody. It's easier for us too. I'm uploading one file versus 20.
Yeah.
Right. So
have a lot more. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So and hopefully that's more convenient. I think you said in one of your videos you thought it was more convenient.
For me, for her, not so much.
Not so much for you.
I just have to, I have to rework my workball and how it pulls and the things that I just got to rework this.
Do we throw a new column in there on you? It's got the ticker. All right.
No, well, it's okay. I just have to take the time now, but it just happened this week, right? And then we were packing to come here. It might have been Friday because I don't have trades for ULTI for Friday either. Which then leads me into another thing that I have written down is ULTI. So I like following them because the other ones are all pretty much the same. But for ULTI, I see the evolution of the things that y'all keep changing. And so the one thing that I see that's happening now, so before you were just letting them expire and be done with it. But now I've noticed probably the last 2, maybe 3 weeks, it appears you're going to close them out instead of letting them expire. At least I've seen it a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So you're right. So there's been a little bit of a change and it's more of it's only the ones that we're going to get assigned on do we trade out of instead of letting the assignment occur. So it has to do with the mechanics of settlement and custodians. So really that was a request from our primes who said, look, there's a break, and this is really, kind of boring administrative stuff, but our options are in one account and our long stock is in another account. When you guys see them together, they look like they're all in one account, but they are in multiple places. So what happens is when you get assigned, you end up being short stock. And I'm long stock over here. The net is I'm flat, but there's a settlement. So there's a day before this settles. And then I have to move the stock over or I have to move the short over, right? So then it causes more operational work. So we just said for now, until we can figure out the most efficient way to do this, trade out at the close, anything that's in the money and going to get assigned, you're going to get the same value in the end, right? So the net, like let's say, I'm trying to think what's in the money today. Well, I won't say anything today. In the past, if something was in the money by $20, the call is going to cost me 20 to get out of, but I got at least, the appreciation that I own stock. We exit, it's fine. We made the distance to the short call plus the short call premium. We made our goal. It makes operational, things go a lot smoother with settlement
So
and margin.
if I heard you correctly, so you don't actually make any extra money by closing those out early.
You don't.
I thought maybe you would because the stock maybe probably appreciated a lot more and you're not just
Let's say I could try to time the market on that, cover that call with no time value left in the morning or like noon, and then hopefully the underlying moves a little farther and closes it. For us, I'd much rather have the math, treat it as if I got assigned. If the assignment price was going to be 20, get me out at a net 20 between the cost of the call and the proceeds from the stock. So no, we do them at the same time. Yep.
So closing early, speaking of that, Coney, they closed early, 5,001 contracts. I forget the strike, cost 7 cents, essentially rounded up 7 cents. No brainer, right? I love that move.
Take the money off, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But so what? Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't, right? Because there were other strikes that they could have closed too for maybe around that same price. So what is the determination of that? Like when there is a close, I know I kind of asked this in the last interview too, but is it always just like, all right, we're going to do partial just in case, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow? Because obviously if we close some and coin flies up tomorrow, then all right, we made the right decision. We could, still close higher. But I mean, how do you determine that? I mean, at what, say like under 10 cents, is that like, to me, you guys, a no brainer if it's Thursday?
Yeah, look, without giving away too much of our secret sauce, I think you would know this, we have a target when we enter. We want to make X amount of dollars. Those dollars typically equate to the annualized return of the IV. Okay, that's all information I've been talking about for at least a year.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I get a little more. And so now I know, maybe I got a dime extra in that fill but at the timing of the market or whatever was going on when we did our fill. Now I can say, all right, I've got a dime to get out of this. It would be worth to take it off. And if I could take it off Wednesday or Thursday, I'll do that. There's some other things that come into play as to, hey, where can I then sell the next one, right? So if I could close on a Wednesday, now my next trade is not 5 trading days. I've got 7 trading days. It'll be easier for me to make my target income, right? So I'm still going for a 5-day return, but I have 7 days. So from a time perspective, I've just added 40% to my theta. So we'll look at that as well. We go, this one's worth doing. But if let's say the one the next week is like, let's wait until that's a little better, we'll assess that as well.
So that's why you didn't sell a call right after you closed that one.
Yeah, let's give it a chance to be a little better. I'm going to do it on Friday, most likely, no matter what. Yeah. Most likely, you never know. Then there's also the other piece, which you are really great about pointing out is, hey, are we selling a call where the synthetic would be profitable if I had to roll it? So we look, are we above our cost basis of our synthetic entry too? All of that goes into the mix.
Yeah. Synthetic bailout, life preserver, right?
I love when it happens.
You hate that term?
Listen, that's your term. I'll let you hold on to it as much as you like.
But I think you'd probably get more money doing it that way, right?
We could. Look,
but that's then time of the market.
Yeah, right. And it's like, I would love it if, so there's 2 scenarios. It keeps going down because the reason we would have closed that call out because it kept going down, right? If it keeps going down, I think a lot of times you'll see us sell half. Right? Like this is like the greatest trick I will tell you, not the trick, greatest methodology. If you're not sure what to do, just do half, right? It like keeps
so
you
now
in.
I know every time I see half, I'm going to say, well, they didn't know what to do.
They weren't sure.
They did half.
They did, right. We may not have loved this new strike. So we said, okay, do half. Maybe it's better the next day. If it turns out it's worse, that half I put on is making money already. Right. Hey, I got to put this other half on anyway. So it gives us the flexibility on the half for sure. Means we didn't love. It wasn't like this is no brainer. Of course, roll the whole thing up to the 280s. Whatever.
I have a boring question that no one probably cares about but me. But why was this one contract traded?
We're probably testing something.
Okay, because I saw that there was 5,000, then there's one. They closed both, right? But the one was just hanging out. I'm like, of course, it had a different price.
Strike. Yeah.
It was a different price, so I had to make another row for it.
But, there are times where that's probably more of an operational thing, right? One out of the however many thousands of contracts are on coin this week, right? But you might Misty, you've seen some interesting stuff too, right? Yeah. Where we've actually used a flex on some of the Misty positions too, right? So Euroflex, so there's not an early assignment, right? There's a little operational work in there too. I think there were 19 last week. You'll see there's going to be more this week.
They are the scattered strike maniac because money keeps coming in, and that's the fun. I've covered that from day one, so I feel like that's kind of my baby to understand from
it is almost daily inflows into Misty, and so you want to treat that money that comes in as if it was the only money that was there. So while we use the same synthetic, it doesn't matter. That's the 100 delta spot, right? Yeah. moving around of those call strikes had to do with, well, this chunk of money, this is where you should sell the call. Like if it's close to one that exists, fine, we may use it to make life a little easier, but it moves so much on a stock of that size. I can move 20, 30 strikes away and it's still worth doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Last thing, I'll let you go. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I just want to make sure you get your stuff in too.
Well, we're on the
It's
crypto
already-
topic. I just want to bring it up.
I
A
have
lot
it
of
open, too.
people are looking forward to Fiat.
That was my next question.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, that's fine. But that's exactly what I was going to ask too.
So is there a short for MSTR and Coney, or is there MSTY and Coney, or is there just one? And if what are the names again, if there is a short for both?
Yeah, so we filed a total of 6 inverses. That's it. So Crash, which you already know is live. We just mentioned Fiat, Dips, which is the
What was
NVIDIA one.
Fiat for?
Fiat's for Coney.
Okay.
So it'd be coin. It'll be an inverse coin.
Okay.
We did not file for a MicroStrategy. That
Okay.
one wasn't even live yet when we did that inverse filing. Then what do we have? Apple, which is ROTN. That's a funny one. The ARC one, that's inverse. I forgot that ticker. And then the Qs, which will be interesting. That would be our first index. So kind of an inverse on the index, QQQ. Well, I don't know what the is it Y?
And I think I
QQQ?
had that one of my questions on here is YieldMax ever going to do anything, on the market like Defiance does? But
Well,
you're talking about an inverse Q.
there's the
one
inverse
step.
Qs that's filed. Yeah.
That's one step.
Yeah, that's an interesting
So we can
dance for us.
assume-
We're always, look, that has been Defiance's bailiwick, and that's been their focus. So, it might be a little different, for YieldMax.
I think Fiat is, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think Fiat is going to be a big hit. I know Crash, maybe not so much, but I think Fiat is going to be bigger than Crash. Just my
And that's the
thought.
thing, right? We've been all wanting an inverse on Tesla, and stuff. And we're getting it at many months after we've wanted it.
I know. Wouldn't it have been
It's-
nice if that was live
Exactly.
already? Yeah,
So
months
I think
ago.
that's where we're getting at now with Fiat, because a lot of people are asking for it and wanting it as soon as possible because, everybody wants to hold Coney and Misty and do all this stuff. But I think, a lot of them have stressed how much they want that.
Yeah, I would say keep your eye out for announcements on Fiat.
Okay.
But that's probably all I could say.
Okay. Yeah, no
But
problem.
announcements soon.
Yeah, good stuff.
I got a question for you guys.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
What are you most looking forward to at the NYSE today, being here?
Tonight,
Ringing it.
close the bell.
Close the bell, ring
I
the
mean, come
bell,
on.
right? I mean, but
Y'all
what
have
is your
fun.
expectations here? Like, what is like when you think about going to ring the bell? Anything like, what do you think about that?
I dreaded coming into New York City, but I was happy once I got here. But yeah, just to be here in general, obviously, it's awesome.
Yeah,
I don't know what doing the closing bell is,
Yeah.
but I obviously see it on TV and everything. So it's just,
Well, and what I think is cool, they're not just doing the bail; they have all these other things set up for us to do. So that's exciting as well. But yeah, the bail, like I try to get my daughter to come with me because y'all said 3 people can
Sure.
come. And my middle child, she just
A middle child. I'm
Yeah.
kidding. I'm sure she's
Yeah.
wonderful.
She
I'm a middle.
is. But so she's actually going. She just got her associates in finance, and she's fixing to go to bachelor's
wow.
in finance. So I was trying to get her to come here. And she's like, it's too short notice. I'm like, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
That's
You should
it.
come. It's too short. Okay, I tried.
That's okay. Well, that's great. Well, I'm glad that you guys are here for this.
but the fact that you guys arrange, like, number one, you invent, the content creators.
Mhm.
Obviously, that's awesome. And then you obviously you can schedule time with us like you are now to speak with you. I can tell you people appreciate that. So they know you don't have to do that, right? But you're willing to do that. And it's not like we're some big YouTubers, right? We're just people that are just going to ask, anything and everything.
Well,
And
hopefully you ask the questions that are on your viewers' minds and people's minds,
Yes.
right? So that's great.
yeah, I mean, they always, obviously you have an idea what I talk about. They always,
I might have seen a video or two.
yeah. And I covered, so you see the emojis and everything of the tight strikes and all that, but you kind of answered that in the previous videos. So sometimes I guess I'll speak to that, right? Because now not that long ago, I added an annualized field because now I compare that to the IV to make sure it makes sense, right? If you're shooting for that IV, then the annualized.
How am I
yield-
doing?
Pretty close.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Sometimes, like on NVIDIA, I thought maybe you went a little too aggressive, but maybe you had to, right? Maybe the step down was too much. So, it is working, but then some IVs fluctuate, right?
Sure.
And
Week to
that's-
week.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tesla's like, and then MSTR is consistently up. Coin is pretty good. But how are the others doing as far as?
Like Meta fluctuates, Google fluctuates quite a bit week to week. Obviously, Apple's move a few weeks ago, 2 weeks, was it only 2 weeks ago, a week ago, like boom, changed its volatility.
Yeah.
We call it the volatility curve, but it just changed the way that looks a little bit. So they will change, and week to week we redefine how much we're going to make, right? So it's a fairly active decision that we're making.
Yeah. So if Tesla is like 50% IB, right, and you do half the contracts at 70% annualized yield, then there's a chance you can go 30 on the other, right?
We could, sure.
Okay.
But if I can pull a 70 off one week and I can do the rest at 50, I'd love to get more.
That way you can close it early if needed, right? Like
Sure.
you said, because you already have a gap that you covered, right?
Yeah.
By the way, Tesla is doing much better than it was in the beginning. I tell people that all the time. It's staying at that 15 range, but because in the beginning it was tough.
It was whipsawing like it was an EKG, right? When we launched Tesla, I think Tesla was trading at 180. It went down to 100 within like the first couple weeks. I was like, great, this is the worst timing ever.
Crash
and then whipsawed, will crash and great. And then whipsawed back up. And then at some point it went up into the almost 300 and then we got back down. It's like, that's the worst scenario for a covered call strategy, right? Because I get all the down and I don't get all the up, right? Like that EKG, I'm literally like, that's what it reminds me of is very difficult to trade around, right? That's the worst case, not worst case scenario, but that's a hard option scenario. Worst case scenario is Tesla goes to $1, right? That would be the worst case scenario.
Do you remember the 217.50?
217.50. That strike.
Was that?
I don't remember that one.
I wanted to make a T-shirt for that. That was
how much did it cost us to get out of that one?
That was somewhere around November.
$30.
Right?
That was a lot.
$30-$40.
Around there.
We had one at that price also early on. Like in December of 22, we had one like that too.
I made that video in the gym parking lot. I'll never forget. It was the Saturday because I was pissed about that in the beginning of the week.
He probably cussed
and I was like, but that was before obviously the many interviews he did explaining why they do what they do. But at the time, I'm like,
why would you cap here?
We're capped. We've been capped on Tuesday, or and
I would tell you, we go, okay, we're gonna have to fight out of this one. It happens.
So you remember that strike?
I don't remember that exact trade because we've been through 217 multiple times, right? So I'll have to take a look at.
Yeah, I have it on my spreadsheet.
November 23.
I can show you later.
All right, I'll take a look. Send it to me, will you? I'll be like, oh yeah,
I have the how much it costs to close it too. So
yeah,
it's
and we were probably upside down on the synthetic at that point too. So we had to roll to get the cash, but we were already below our cost basis. Sometimes you find yourself in that situation. The nice thing in our scenario like that is we really don't have to take many contracts off. And that's where, like, if you own stock, in order to come up with the cash to cover a $40 call, you're going to have to sell, a fifth of your shares just to get out of that $50, $40 cost. With the synthetic, we don't always have to do that, right? So we end up keeping a lot more of our notional exposure, which is important, right? So we're not like, we only got 80% of the exposure that we had last week. Then guess what that does to the yield, right? It pulls down. So that is a unique thing about the construction here that at least doesn't get hurt.
So the synthetic, sorry, if I'm cutting you off, you had a question.
Let's do it.
But most of the time, this synthetic bailout,
I love
it does.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's a massive credit, right? You're making typically so much more income than you lost, right, in the bad weekly.
It should always be that way, yes.
Is there a thought of, all right, let's just close out some of the synthetic now, a little more than what we lost in the weekly versus not? Typically, you roll the whole synthetic.
Yeah.
But I noticed sometimes we have two synthetics. Tesla's had it for a while now, with not a lot of activity on it. But regardless, some others. I think one of them recently had a temporary synthetic. I think it was NVIDIA after the post reverse split. They had two strikes one day, and then they decided, all right, let's just put it all into one. But what is the thought of two synthetics? Like, is there any?
I don't think there's a problem if I say this. For Tesla, it's an example of where we have multiple custodians and our accounts are spread out, right? So it's one way just to. Yeah. It doesn't matter to the performance of the fund, but it's a way that we can actually spread out and track what's at one custodian and what's at another custodian. Okay. So it's more operational. There's no strategic advantage to it, except maybe if we're going to do a partial roll and we line it up with those. That's it.
It was very far out in expiration. I did like that.
Okay.
Saves me time. No, very sorry.
Sorry. I don't forget what I was going to
Sorry, I
ask.
think we got to wrap up pretty soon.
Yeah, I
but
think someone's been waiting.
how do you want to close out?
Yeah, do a nice closeout question.
Oh, okay.
Grill him.
Let me look at this.
So I was looking
No.
forward to.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you plan? So I bought your book, right? Buy and Hedge. I was
Thank
trying
you.
to read it on the airplane here, and I was so tired. So I haven't
It
finished
put you right
it.
to sleep. Okay, I got you. I
No.
got you, Camper. Camper goes to sleep. I'm writing that down.
No, we
guys.
didn't get to sleep all night because we had to drive and get an early flight and everything. So I didn't get to read much. But I was curious if you were going to write another book in the future, whether it would be updating that book if you want to do some updates, or if you did a book specifically on like YieldMax or Defiance and how, you know, the history and how you came up with these things and your best the pros and cons or lessons learned, you know, in there, stuff like that people could read.
Yeah. So the Buy and Hedge book, thank you for buying that. Thank you for mentioning that. Wrote in 2010, 2011. A lot of the concepts in there are still accurate today. The whole concept of why hedging, you know, avoiding volatility, that math all still works today. That first whole half of the book is why you should hedge. We talk about the 5 iron rules. We talk about the immutable laws, all fun stuff. If you
Is it
want
in
to
the
just
book bag?
learn. I don't have a book with me. We did not put a book in there. And then there's the second half is how you can do it all yourself, right? It's about options. So in case you're wondering if you're wondering about, there you go. But so the answer is yes. Thinking about a new, oh my gosh, she's got one. Amazing. Let's show it on the
Yeah,
video.
put it on the camera. Yeah.
Yay, Buy and Hedge.
There it is.
Which is one of, we have an ETF, ZHDG, runs this strategy. And again, this could use a little update, but I have certainly been asked to write another book, and there's a good chance that that is going to happen. And it would be more on these topics, right? Selling premium, more like smaller lessons versus this is, you know, a couple hundred pages about how you want to do it yourself. And there you go.
Well, it was funny because the reason this came up is because I was listening to one of the interviews you've done in this last month, and I started picking out titles for books. Every time you'd say something, like, that'd be a good title for a book.
Send me the list.
But like, this one is really long, but I wrote it down exactly the way you said it. It says, tomorrow comes after today, and we can profit from that by time decay and options. But then the next one you said picking winners matters or matter. And then you said the one thing I would change is pick more winners.
Pick more
I don't
winners.
know. Those things, just some of those things are like, man, you should write a book.
Write a book about
Those
picking winners.
titles.
That's funny stuff. Well, thank you for asking that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Well, Jay, thank you for your time. Thank you for
You're very
inviting us.
welcome. You're very
Look
welcome.
forward to today. And that's all. Any closeouts, Jay, for the channel?
Go YieldMax.
There we go.
Woohoo!
So I brought my book so you get it.
Tesla
Absolutely
cookie.
sign it for you. Absolutely sign it for you. Let me just see what Daniel needed.